What's up, guys? Sci-Fi Guy 2094 here. Today, it's going to be a very controversial video. So, if you are not ready for this, just know this is going to be controversial. But I'm going to be discussing why I'm a male feminist. So, stay tuned and let's get into this. Alright, so, why am I a male feminist? There's a couple reasons why I would consider myself a male feminist. Now, first reason, as far back as I can remember, that made me a male feminist was watching Resident Evil. So, these films were huge back in the day. They were like big blockbusters. A lot of times I would watch these like at home, like they were on TV. A lot of times, like on Sci-Fi Original Network. And I just really liked these. You have the lead character, Alice, who's basically going up against the Umbrella Corporation, which is this corporation that owns the world basically, and they are responsible for the invention, the creation of this T virus, which basically, plunges the world into a zombie apocalypse, basically. Um, and she's just badass. She kicks ass. Just look at that cover. That tells you everything you need to know. One chick with guns, and then the umbrella in the background. That's the Umbrella Corporation's logo. She's going up against the Umbrella Corporation. So, this pretty much encapsulates the whole series. Now, are these the most intricate plots? Do they have the best acting? No, of course not. The action's pretty good though, and they are fun films, and there's a really good horror element in the very first film. I really like that first film quite a bit. The other I'd say moment in my life that turned me into a male feminist was when I watched Underworld, because Underworld was like really big back in the day, and you had Kate Beckinsale as basically this vampire hunter lady. She was like dressed in all black, and she had guns as well. And there's of course the stuff with like the lichens and the werewolves as well, but for the most part it was like kind of like just her fighting vampires. And then of course there was like a war between vampires and werewolves. And I think her name is Celine or Selena, I think. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. But honestly, I didn't get super into like the story of Underworld. I just kind of liked the movies because they were pretty action heavy, and the set pieces were nice. I liked the aesthetic, very gothic aesthetic. And of course, their fantasy, which I love fantasy. And then there's like a little bit of sci-fi as well. But that's what also turned me into a male feminist. And there are more recent movies that I would say makes me a male feminist, because we have Alita Battle Angel. I'm still waiting on a sequel to this one. Come on, James Cameron. This is your studio here. I know you're working on Avatar, but come on, we need a sequel. We need a sequel. This was 2019. We've been waiting 6 years and still no word about an Alita sequel. So anyway, this movie's pretty cool. It's about this. It's a futuristic, almost, it's kind of like a cyberpunk film, basically. Futuristic society. There was like some type of war, and Alita is basically, she kind of fell from some warship or something that happened several years ago, and she's in this junkyard. Basically, this guy finds her. He's kind of like a roboticist. He's very smart. He just finds her in this junk heap. He puts her back together, and then she starts to like train and things like that. And eventually she wants to kind of regain her memory and find out who she was, and basically go up against, I believe there's like Vector, this guy, played by Mahershala Ali, and we really haven't got to see again. There's no sequel. We haven't got to see the conclusion of the story, but we're gonna find out. Hopefully, if they make a sequel, what the war was like, how she lost her memories, and just everything that led up to that war, and how it's going to conclude. I really like this movie. It's great. Super good. If you guys haven't seen this and you're a sci-fi fan, you definitely need to watch this. Um, so yeah, obviously there are more movies that are like female led, which are like action movies. Don't listen to Jennifer Lawrence. She said that she was the first female action hero. That's not true. I was watching Resident Evil, Underworld. If you watch the Alien films from 1979, that's kind of like a crew, but obviously Sigourney Weaver's like the lead. And then Aliens, the sequel. So there's a lot of good, action female led films. I also would watch Pirates of the Caribbean back in the day. Now, Pirates of the Caribbean, obviously, Orlando Bloom plays Will Turner, and you have Johnny Depp, which there is no Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp. He is the face of the franchise as Captain Jack Sparrow. But you also had Keira Knightley, who was pretty capable and pretty badass, so I really like those movies. She was awesome. I mean, that trio, all three of them, they made the movies fun, exciting, uh, great on-set chemistry, between these characters. They're also different. Obviously, Captain Jack Sparrow being like this very rude, foul-mouthed, drunken pirate, and then Keira Knightley's character is, more of like the tame kind of normal girl who tries to keep everything in order. She's no damsel in distress, that's for sure. Which is why I like it, because she's very capable. She's strong. She can fight. She's pretty smart. And then you have Orlando Bloom's character, which is Will Turner, which he's like, he's more like the fancy English guy, but he's not like on the side of like the really super fancy English people that wear the white wigs, like the government basically. Like he's at odds with them. So you have great characters, all three of them. Um, let's see, what else? What else? I thought there was another film I was going to talk about that had a good female lead. I'll talk about if it comes to me. But anyway, I really like those films. Nowadays, if you guys go on YouTube and if you're around certain channels, I think you guys know exactly the channels I'm talking about. But anytime there's like a female lead or like a capable female in a film, you have trolls and losers calling it woke, which, I mean, a female lead, I'm sorry to say, that has nothing to do with the movie being woke. Woke is more like an ideology that they put in the film. Certain things that would make it woke, not just the fact that it's a female lead. So people were afraid of, Ballerina being woke because it's a female lead. So people didn't show up for it. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny failed miserably. I think mostly because that franchise probably had a good conclusion. I never really got into them, but it's probably not because it was a female lead that made it bomb. It was just like they disrespected the legacy of Indiana Jones, making him this tired old man who was weak. Not so much the fact that there's like a female lead. But, there's some people, whether it's like the YouTube community or the superhero community, that I do think they are afraid of female leads for some reason or another. if they see a female lead, they'll say, "Oh, it's a woke movie. It's a girl boss movie." I mean, I'm not sure when that type of sentiment came around, but I mean, we've had female leads quite a while. So I don't know why all of a sudden people are afraid of a female lead and they're saying it's woke and it's a girl boss movie and it's feminist propaganda. I mean, I love women in action films, um, and sci-fi films and horror films. So I mean, if that's feminist propaganda, then I guess I'm a male feminist because I like these movies. Um, I'll probably make a movie. I mean, I'll probably make a video on horror movies, um, talking about female protagonists. That would be like a whole separate video because I do want to talk about that one, but that'll probably be another video. But anyway, those are my thoughts on female-led films or female-led co-star films. Like they're like a co-lead rather, and yeah, that's my thoughts on the whole, the whole topic and the conversation surrounding female leads. What toxic fandoms would call girl boss or woke films. I'd say I like woke films. I'm a huge fan of. I'm trying to think of like something more recent that was like an action movie that had a lead. Well, okay, so I haven't seen these films, but I actually heard really good things about them. Like I mentioned, Ballerina. Critics liked it, fans liked it. I heard it's a solid film. Didn't really do too well at the box office. And then Furiosa, which I'm not into Mad Max. I never liked the Mad Max saga. They kind of put me to sleep. I tried watching the first Mad Max. It put me to sleep. I tried watching Fury Road. I watched Fury Road all the way through, but it just didn't. It's kind of forgettable. Some cool action sequences, but other than that, it's not really a great movie. But anyway, Furiosa was like really well received by critics. Mad Max fans who are like diehard fans loved it. But you had like a certain segment that, they thought it was woke because there was a female lead. I don't think that's why it failed. I think it failed and it bombed at the box office because Fury Road came out in 2015 and it was just like so much longer after that film. I believe Furiosa was last year, so it was like 9 years, so nearly a decade after the last film, A Fury Road. But anyway, I'd be willing to give those movies a chance. Just because it's like a female-led action film doesn't mean it's not going to be as good as like a male-led action film. Obviously, there are terrible action films that are male-led as well. For example, G.I. Joe films. Those are really crappy films, all three of them. But they're male-led, and it has nothing to do with really if it's male or female led. It's really just about the script and the acting and the plot line. So anyway, I could go on about this topic, but I'm going to try and just end it right there. But in short, that is my opinion, and that is why I am a male feminist.